Wednesday, July 13th, 3:26 a.m. I had a dream like this before, so I just want to record it. Or at least these last few scenes. That's really what it was, it's just the last two scenes. That's all I remember right now. There's a plane that turns into a car. And this plane, in this plane, was my ex-boss. My new ex-boss, JB. She just left the agency. And there's this island. And so this plane car was trying to land. It was trying to land. And I'm watching it at a distance. Like I'm overhead. I'm overhead. I'm watching this unfold. And I see the plane car do some flip thing to pick up momentum, only to come back down. But it swerves, and so it misses the trail to land, and it ends up going into the water. And at that moment, it was my new ex-boss, but also my sister. And so they need help, right? They missed their target. They go into the water and they need help. And I'm just watching, and I'm floating up, I'm above. So there's the only connection to me was that all of a sudden the passenger is my sister. But my ex-boss she's a leader. She's in leadership. So there's this element of like, she's in the water, she's calling for help. You know, kind of like where you do like the whole Mayday type of thing. Only it's computerized, but just communication. But as she's calling for help, she's kind of like trying to show the way out of the water. But she starts seizing, and I automatically knew she got bit by something. And then she comes to, and she recognizes what's happening to her. And at that moment, what bit her are like these black fish eels, like a snake in the water. It felt like it was a snake in the water, like an eel, because I'm thinking electricity. Look, it was in the water. And she's trying to let them know to get out of the water. because we kind of like rattled them up. So my sister doesn't get it. She's swimming away from the scene. And there's this feeling like I know my ex-boss is not going to make it. Like I know she's not going to make it. Like she's going to die, drown, because of what happened. And so my focus is now on the rest of the people. Because now it's not just my sister in the water, it's my brother and my sister-in-law and the kids. It's like my family. So there's this feeling like I was a part of the water, but then I'm not anymore. Now I'm floating. And I'm watching everybody else in the water. And I can see the shadow of the eels coming towards everybody else. And I'm like trying to move them out of the water. And they're like, it's like they know what they need to do, but they're not hurrying. They're not rushing. Like there's this feeling like they know what they need to do, but they're not doing it. And I see these eels approaching, and it's like I'm from a like, because I'm floating above and watching down below. You know, when you're high up in the water, but you can see the shadow, kind of like when you can see the shadow of the sharks, right? It's the same concept. I'm seeing them, and there's this like, I'm the one that's like, hurry. But and they know they need to get out of the water, but they're not doing it. And then finally, because it's getting closer, I yell out, "Get out of the water! Get out of the water!" And then they start moving. They start slowly getting out, and so it's like the eels are like missing them, like almost missing them. And so I say it once, and they start listening. But I say it once, and then they start moving more, but they're not doing it fast enough. That's what it was. They weren't doing it fast enough, and they were I could see the black eels in the water like catching up, and I'm like, and then I realized the kids are in there too, and so I yell, "Get out of the water!" And that's what woke me up. And I heard myself say it out loud as I woke up from the dream. Get out of the water. I don't know what it means. It feels like I need to look up an eel being electrocuted. This feeling of like, it was my ex-boss, my ex-new boss. And this feeling of like I was that's the thing, like in the first scene, it felt like I was somewhat connected to both. There was this feeling that I was somewhat connected to both my new boss, my ex-new boss, my new ex-boss. My new ex-boss. The connection is I'm in the line of work. That's what I felt like. I was like I'm half in and half out of that new line of work, of that old line of work. And then also with my sister being with my boss. This element of like, my connection is my family, like, but I'm also not connected anymore. So there's this feeling of like, I'm connected but not connected. And even me in the water, because I remember feeling the water, but also being a part. that the first scene. The first scene, there was this feeling, I'm a part of the world, but I'm not. I'm a part of the world, but I'm not. And I remember taking my foot out of the water. Once the eels, once I saw what was happening with the eels, I looked, but it went for my boss first. I mean, I don't have contact with her. But it went for my boss first. And she realized it. And that's when she was trying to call for help. Through our system, through our work system. I don't know how, but she was trying to call, like, give them a heads up. And my sister was able to get away, and that's when I started saying, get out of the water. I removed my foot from the water at that point. And I say, get out of the water. And then my sister's like hurrying. Like she's trying to hurry. And she misses their bite. But then the next scene, it's my family in the water. And I'm no longer a part of that world. Like my foot's no longer in the water. So I'm floating at a distance. I'm separated from them. But they're not moving fast enough. That's the thing, that they're not. They know they need to get out of the water, but they're not moving fast enough. And that's when I repeat it again. Get out of the water. And that's what woke me up. It felt a little more panicky. I felt a little more panic. And I wonder why. Because I'm trying to I know I'm trying to get comfortable with this idea of loss. I think that's been the theme lately for me. Is just getting more comfortable with this idea of separation and loss. Mostly because it was triggered because I'm being asked. The feeling is that I'm being asked to put a curriculum together on healing it. And then the thought that came to my mind was, but have I experienced loss? And to some degree I have. It's symbolically and just, being separated from my family, being separated from my home, right? Creating my new home. So this loss of this having to nurture, right, the destruction in order for my destiny, my path to be highlighted, which was the title of the video that posted yesterday. Nurturing destruction and destiny. So and I mentioned it before in other videos where I think I identified myself once as, I am death and something, one of the chapters, because I have Pluto in my first house. So the first house is the house of identity, the house of the self. And so there's this constant death and rebirth process. But apparently I also learned that it's also about control. No, I attended that one meeting yesterday with Miss Christina. It's really interesting. I learned a lot. But it was really interesting, the concept of power. Oh, because the full moon is in Capricorn. And I remember just listening to them and hearing how impacted they are energetically. And that's always one thing, as I was listening to their videos, I'm like, I don't feel like I'm being impacted. Like I have a whiff of it, that's all. Like I'm not as sensitive to the energies. I've mentioned it before because I'm somewhere in the middle. So there's this ability to connect with some of the energy, mostly through my dreams. In the sleep world, I can connect emotionally more to it than in real life, compared to other people who in real life have a higher degree of sensitivity to energy. and it seemed like that group was more of the highly sensitive, like definitely more empaths. The way they talked about the impact of the energy and the impact of the planetary stuff. And I've listened to this is the first time I actually attended. And so I've listened to some of their videos before, but that was always one thing that stuck with me, is how sensitive they are to experiencing the shifts. And then realize I'm not that impacted by it. If anything, it's more the impact of what I need to do, right? Or how I'm working with the energy. So that happened yesterday. But so the interesting part is, after they do the astrology talk of what's happening currently, and it's usually around full moons or new moons, because it's this element of letting go or planting seeds, right? Letting go of what doesn't serve you and planting things for the things you want to keep taking with you through the next cycle. And then there's a meditation, but they do their meditation, it's very open. But the meditation part, they tend to focus kind of like Catholicism, where you pick like a saint, right, to pray to ask for inner, what is it, inner, for them to pray for you, right? Or hey, can you give us guidance or something? So it has that same feel. And I remember thinking before, I'm like, how does that work if I don't feel that way about that way. But then I'm like, but it's, and then remembering like, well, everybody does their thing, right? Whatever makes them feel comfortable. And so some of like the gods that they, and again, these are all spiritual, like whatever spiritual leader you're connecting with is basically who you're working towards tapping in with through meditation. And so one of the people that they recommended, because there were so many of us who were similarly being impacted, it was really fascinating to see, like, so many of us were going through a divorce, or finalizing a divorce, or starting a divorce, because I guess Pluto is going through a return, so we won't experience this again in our lifetime, apparently, in Capricorn. And we're at the last year of Pluto making its way out of Capricorn, in and out of Capricorn. And it started, I guess, in 2008. So a lot of the talk was self-reflection of where we were in 2008. I was like, well, I was getting married in 2000. I think it was 2006. I don't remember. I was never good at remembering my wedding date. But I think it was also around the same time that I either got married and or graduated from college. If it wasn't 2006, it was 2008. I totally could be wrong. 9, 10, 11, 12. No, yeah. It was when I graduated or got married, because I remember at my first job, I stayed there for like 3.5 or 4.5 years, and then I started my new job. And that one I always remember, where I started my new job was 2012. So if I work backwards, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, it's 4 years. So I either was getting married or graduating. And apparently that was the first transit. And so that, for the first 12, 14 years of my life, I was unbalanced. And there was this element of control. So people with Pluto in the first house have a tendency to either be very controlling, misuse their power, and or not recognize that they have power. So then there's a tendency for there to be needing to speak up, right? To use that self-power within. It was interesting too, because then I read that if Pluto's in your fourth house, there tends to be a higher abuse in your home, childhood home. And I was like, oh, that's so fascinating. I need to look more into that, right? Understand the planets a little more. So anyways, Pluto is one of the farther planets, so it tends to be more of a generational impact versus the planets that are closer to home. So anyways, as I was hearing them say that, it made sense for me. And I'm like, I was very controlling. I was very on one extreme of it, where I wanted my ex to be a certain way. There was a lot of expectation of how I needed to be. And there was just this element of control, right? Control at work, control with the activities, control with, like, we gotta do this, we gotta do that. And that it was unbalanced, because I wasn't really practicing. Like, there was this progression through my life of needing to let go of stuff and work on my self-care. And then finally, more recently, there was an explosion, she said, in 2020, which was when everything started going down for me. And so it was kind of like, okay, this is the final, like, destruction, right? And Pluto tends to be like that, which is why a lot of people don't respond well to it, because it's very in your face, like, gotta blow this apart, we gotta blow this apart. And that's what ended up happening to me. Was my whole life got blown apart. This forced awakening, right? With what was the truth, because that was another part of Pluto. Is it Pluto or Capricorn? I don't remember my notes. Capricorn is the ruler of structure and boundaries and agreements. So Pluto pushes through and amplifies the power. It becomes a gateway. And so it's associated with big fears and power struggles. And because it's a slow-moving Pluto, you'll feel it more, causes quote-unquote destruction. And so in 2020, Pluto blasted through our systems, causing a lot of instability and fear. And so right now, Pluto's in transit through April for one more year, in and out for one more year. It's closing out in a year, or this year, and it's been in Capricorn since 2008. And so it's impacting the whole country, because Pluto is a generational planet. And so in 2008, in the US, there was also a lot of issues with money and system and resources, power struggle in the financial system. So then so went back to the gods to meditate. So I learned about Yamarish, who's the Lord of Death. I didn't look them up. But anyways, I mean, I didn't meditate specifically to anybody, because for me it's like, well, I have worked on finding the power source within me that's connected to source. So that was the question in my head about, like, and I know they would have said who you meditate, however, with whomever you're comfortable with. So for me, it wasn't so much of meditating with a particular person, but more so like just what I usually do, right? But then even the question that got posed was like to ask them how to help us embrace our power, our inner power, and or what else do we need to work through our own death or destruction? Like what else is needing to be cleared out, right, in order to allow for something new to come in? So I thought about it, and I was just like, even by simply asking, there's this element of I've lost power, I've lost control, is the first immediate thought for me. And it's the same concept of like when we pray to Jesus, or when we pray to saints, how we're taught to, right? And I'm learning that I don't need to. For other people to be, however their line is fine, but for me, it's this new awareness, this realization. I'm like, I can go straight to source, right? I am source. Source is me. There's this direct connection. And that's one of the ways to embrace your power, right? Is having the confidence, right? To use your power in a balanced way. Because you know who you are. There's no fear. There's no fear, right? With whatever movements are happening. But see, that's the thing, like, but I'm somewhere in the middle. So the impact it has on me is going to be different than other people around me. That's what I'm realizing. So then it makes sense that everyone is on a different, has it their own way, right? And that was one of the things that they asked, is to find the way as a community. That's why they do these group meditations. But in the back of my head, I'm just like, but that's the thing, like for each person, it's going to be different, right? Because each person is the way. But it's the way for them, like it's their path. Anyways, that got triggered. Because I realized yesterday, or just for the past few days, I'm just like, do I fear death? Like, how can I write a curriculum, right? Or that was going back, bring it back. This fear of loss. And is it really my fear? Do I have a fear? Then I thought of the kids. And I thought, like, well, what if something ever happened to them? Like, how would I respond to that? Right? Like with my dad, in regards to death, or, you know, like I mentioned before, he's always prepared me to say goodbye. Because we'd had repeated experiences, and in those moments I would cry. Like there was just a lot of distress around it, and I remember my ex would be really upset about it, the way that my family was, and he struggled with that. And then over time it became more of this, like, okay, I've learned to accept whatever happens to you to happen to you, right? I stopped trying to control the outcome for their lives and force them to change, right? This element of forcing people to change. And I've stepped back from them. I'm like, do your thing, right? I'm not going to be a part of it anymore, but do your thing. And me having to move my attention elsewhere, right? To those, like, and I was thinking about what I told my dad. I'm like, I'm shifting my attention on my mission. What I didn't say was, I'm like, I'm focusing on the people who want to change. Focusing on the people who are asking for my help, who will listen, who will listen. Those are the people that I need to give my attention to. So family, I won't be attentive. I won't be catering to their needs anymore. Been there, done that, right? Got the t-shirt. And now it's towards those who are open to listening and wanting my help. But this dream, like I need to put it a little bit more. So it's way through. Trying to figure out why I jumped. That's it, because I've been talking. It's going to 30 minutes. Alright. Hi, my name is Yubi, and in case you haven't figured it out, this footage is capturing my experience as I learned to navigate my personal spiritual awakening. I am learning that this experience is unique to each one of us. In whatever way we believe we are embracing living our truth, this just happens to be my journey. And despite me having a graduate degree and a license in clinical social work, this by no means is intended to replace any type of mental health advice. This is just me on a personal level, documenting my experience, shedding light on the truth that I am learning and discovering for myself, and really inviting you along for the ride. If by some magical chance you find this content to be helpful in any way, shape, or form, please click the like button, share the message, subscribe to my YouTube channel, channel. I have an Instagram account, a personal one, and one specifically for this channel that you're more than welcome to check out. I'm an open book. I have also created t-shirt designs. I'm wearing my favorite one right now, which is the North Node design, but I have that and other things that you can look at inspired by this process and journey, and I have the link in the description box as well as in the about section of my YouTube channel. So you're more than welcome to check those items out. Any type of support is, great. Again, if you find this content really helpful or meaningful, sometimes when we take that step and be vulnerable, with showing what's inside our hearts and what's really our truth, we realize that we're much more connected than what we thought we were. And so I hope that as I'm living this experience, and that you find some type of truth for yourself, or find some type of ability to heal in some way just by relating, just by knowing that you're not alone. That really has been my goal with this process, not just being able to connect with others, but really for my own healing. It's definitely been a therapeutic experience and a very creative one for myself. So I thank you, and I wish you all the best, and we'll see what else comes next for me.